Welcome, Lumineers and fans of the happiest card game on earth, to the first of the series of 7 videos we're going to be doing here on the Lumineers regarding each of the cards, a deep dive into all of them and seeing what we can glean from them as far as the mechanics of the game goes. We're starting off with Robin Hood, Unrivaled Archer. He's a 4/4 for 6. What does that mean? So, I think what we'll find with this game is that because it is a little similar, at least from what we can tell so far, in the layout of the cards at least, to Magic the Gathering, some of the terminology may come over, and one thing you'll often hear referred to is the cost of the card for the base sort of power and toughness of the card. So here we have a 4/4 for 6, and basically what that means is the first number there on the right, the number 4, and then the shield number 4 as well, is most likely going to be an offensive stat and then a defensive stat. I don't think we have names for these so far. They are referenced on the Captain Hook card, I think, but I'm pretty sure it just says 2 and then the shape that's around the first number there. So I don't think we've actually seen in Lorcana at least what they're going to refer to these as. But attack and defense, power, toughness, those are usually the sort of terms we use for these. You may find with Lorcana that they use some slightly less combative terminology. We have banished instead of kill or destroy, things like that. So maybe not attack and defense, maybe something like power and toughness, or even something a little bit more abstract than that, you know, vigor and fortitude, or I don't know, something probably not, but you know, that kind of thing where they move a little bit away from pure sort of aggression style words. And then the 6 we refer to when we say a 4/4 for 6 is what we imagine is most likely the casting cost there. So this costs you 6 something to play Robin Hood down, and that really is at the moment the big thing that we don't know about, is where the resource for these cards is coming from. The only thing I've really seen mentioned around the place is a single post on a 4chan thread or something that refers to a secondary deck. So you have your deck of all of these kind of cards and then a secondary deck that deals with resource cost or mana or whatever you want to call it, power. And each turn you take one of those. So it's similar to Hearthstone or the what's the other one, the League of Legends one, Runeterra I think it's called, where each turn you get just more resources, like guaranteed resources every turn. I think we probably will see something like that, purely because some of the costed cards here are actually quite high, as we'll see as we move through these. Which suggests that it's not necessarily going to be a system similar to Magic, at least, where you may well get sort of mana screwed, is what they call it in Magic, where you struggle to find the resources you need. It's arguably the weakest part of Magic, and it can very often cost a lot of money to put cards into your decks that help fix that problem. Magic itself is obviously trying to approach fixes for that problem with systems like treasures. They're arguably gone too far with treasures and they're broken, but this isn't a Magic video, this is a Lorcana video. So yes, 6 of something plays us a 4/4. What else does this card tell us? Well, we can see that it is a blue card, and there's an image there just under Unrivaled Archer. It looks like a swirly, magic-y kind of thing. Not too sure what that necessarily references here. I'm pretty sure the symbol just means blue, or whatever they're going to call this. A lot of people are trying to pull information from this symbol that it means something else. I'm pretty sure it's purely there as a way to help with colorblind folks and not have a color be the only defining feature to the type of card that this is. I'm pretty sure we're going to have 6 colors in the game, and this is the blue one, and the symbol there just references blue, much how in Magic, for instance, the blue cards use a water drop. You know, in Pokemon, I'm pretty sure yellow energy is lightning bolts, you know, that kind of thing. There's a symbol as well as a color to denote the type of card that this is. And then under that we have Storyborn and Hero. We're going to go more into those on another video. The big thing that I really wanted to point out with Robin Hood here is its Feed the Poor mechanic. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card. This tells me that the blue cards perhaps are there as a sort of what's the best way to describe this? Sort of a mitigation approach, or sort of like a catch-up mechanic almost. White in Magic very often does this kind of thing. If somebody has more lands than you, play a land. If somebody has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card. Very classic white card in Magic. Here, maybe it's blue. But then Good Shot, during your turn, this creature has evasive. almost starts to make it seem a little bit more aggressive, or perhaps it's purely just a way of keeping it safe on the board, because it means that challenge, but then they can challenge creatures with evasive. No, because that suggests that you're attacking them. You want to try and beat their Mickey, for instance, who's the other card that we've seen with evasive. So it almost seems like it's an aggressive card that still has this catch-up mechanic. Maybe we won't see so defined roles in the color pie of the game like we do with Magic. And one thing I will say about Magic actually is the color roles are starting to get a little less defined as the game progresses, especially more in recent years. The color roles used to be very defined. You know, green was always your value engine, blue was always your control-y type, and we are seeing more and more crossover with those as the game progresses. So it may well be that the starting off with, at least, is that color symbol there is less about the style of card that it is, and perhaps another way of building cards out and deciding what they all do. The last thing I really wanted to point out on Robin Hood is, again, part of Feed the Poor. When you play this character, if an opponent has more cards in their hand than you, draw a card. The last word of that first line, an. If an opponent, not the opponent, not your opponent, an opponent. Now, wild speculation moment, but that to me says that at least they are considering the possibility of multiplayer formats when they're designing these cards. It may not come out the gate, it may not even be a thing that they actively and officially produce, but it's definitely, in my opinion, I want a huge wild speculation here, it's definitely, in my opinion, an active design choice to use that wording if an opponent has more cards than you, as opposed to the opponent, your opponent, or whatever. That to me says that they have made a conscious decision there to at least consider the possibility of multiplayer play in the future. Again, whether or not that is an organized system that they work on, or if they are just assuming that we will attempt to play multiplayer. Magic, famously, their big multiplayer system is called Commander, and it is completely, well, it started at least completely unofficially. It was originally called Eldar Dragon Highlander. It was a format that was made by fans, and even now the ban list and the rule set is managed by a committee, a fan committee. The product, Commander itself, is now arguably an official product. We actually see Commander products produced for Magic. It is now part of their sort of official rule set, and in as much as you can choose Commander events. If you're a store, you can officially run Commander events and what have you. So it's obviously a big part of the game for them now, but it did begin as a fan-made project, and I do wonder here maybe if it's just they are future-proofing these cards for something like that, or they are actually going to come out the gate and say this is a 2 to 4 player game or whatever. That would be pretty big, and a good way to differentiate itself from most other card games. Multiplayer formats is not something that comes up too much. So if they're going to come out the gate with a multiplayer format, that's pretty big and exciting to see, and definitely interesting that they are at least considering it here from Robin Hood. We've seen no other mention of it on any of the other cards. I think it's literally that 2-letter word, that "an," is just enough for us to claw onto the idea that multiplayer is in their sights in some degree anyway. So there you go. Robin Hood looks great. As far as playing it concerned, who knows? You know, I think a lot of people are saying, oh, this is a good card, this is a bad card. I honestly don't think you can tell right now until we understand how important evasion, how important it is to keep characters on your board. We have those 2 inks there. I think we're calling them inks now, but I'm not too sure. Those 2 sort of pips on the right there. We still don't know whether that is a deck building restriction or some sort of victory point system. I'm leaning more towards victory points just because of how prominent it is and how they're lined up on the right there. I can almost see the cards stacked portrait wise to sort of count them, but we don't know whether or not you gain them from destroying your opponent's creature. from banishing your opponent's characters. And then so if you banish an opponent's character with 3, does that earn you 3? Or is it just a case of building your board out to have X amount of them on your board, and that's a win condition? I think it's probably going to be the former there as opposed to the latter, even though it makes the game a little bit more confrontational. I can't see the win condition, or at least the sole win condition, to just being having a board of characters, because that really shuts down a lot of play styles that we see in other games, like control-y style plays or spell slinger plays, where you use more sort of instant spells for direct damage or direct gain as opposed to using creatures. But then again, this may just purely be a creature game, similar more to Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh than Magic. Again, we just don't know right now. But the key things you really want to take away from this are that I'm not sure necessarily that color identity of the card really tells us what kind of card we're going to see, and also that multiplayer. I just think that's the big thing from Robin Hood, is that it leans towards multiplayer, and that's very exciting. Thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed it. Until next time, remember, a true hero isn't measured by the size of his strength, but the strength of his heart. My name is Jonty Sparrow for the Illumineers. I'll see you in the next one.